By 1997, UK developer Bullfrog Productions was a respected studio, with games like Populous and Magic Carpet under its belt. But in August of that year, one of its best creative minds, Peter Molyneux, left to form his own outfit. And as he put together Lionhead Studios, a good number of his former Bullfrog co-workers followed his lead and made their own companies. What followed would be a roller coaster ride of business alliances and mergers, as most of these companies failed to find any traction, but one would end up giving Lionhead its signature franchise. In going from a spare room in Molyneux's house to one of the most developed worlds in console gaming, Lionhead proved that when you take a couple of unlikely heroes and set them an impossible task, what you get is a Fable. One of the several startups begun by former Bullfrog employees was Big Blue Box, so named because it was the least stupid name the founders could think of. They were the Carter brothers, Dean and Simon, plus their friend Ian Lovett, and they were just a little ambitious. Instead of starting out slow with a nice small project with formulaic mechanics, they wanted to create a huge living world filled with realistic people that would dynamically react to the player's decisions on his epic quest. And they had a name for their superlative title: Thingy. Needless to say, they didn't get a lot of seed money to start out. But they had kept in touch with their old co-worker Peter Molyneux. Molyneux had privately made quite a bit of money with his older games and now lived in a mansion. Being the nice old chap that he was, he allowed the three guys to operate out of one of his spare rooms while they were getting started. Molyneux wanted them to succeed. In fact, he wanted all the ex-Bullfrog guys making companies to succeed. But he knew that running a business was hard work and often detracted from the actual game-making process. And so Molyneux's business partner, Steve Jackson, devised an innovative system to help them out. His studio, Lionhead, would embrace these other ones as satellite studios. As satellite studios, they would be completely independent and could make whatever games they wanted, but Lionhead would handle all the technology, testing, design, PR, and business support. It was a huge boost to the fledgling operations, which could now focus on making a game rather than running a company. Sadly though, Molyneux couldn't fund his satellites, so it was up to each of them to find their own seed money. Big Blue Box had a bank loan for the moment, but long-term they were going to need a publisher. For a while it looked pretty grim. Major corporations didn't want to invest in a startup with unknown names and a wildly expensive project. But then when it all started to look pretty hopeless, they were saved by the biggest corporation of them all. Microsoft was quietly beginning work on its first console and was looking for talented, up-and-coming developers to code for them. They liked Big Blue Box's demo, and they trusted that Molyneux would help them deliver a quality game. And so it was that Thingy found a publisher in Microsoft Game Studios in June 2000. In October of 2001, Peter Molyneux announced and demoed the game at an Xbox press event, along with its new working title, Project Ego. Molyneux, here and in the months to come, would make a lot of big claims. The player would find his character competing with other heroes across the land for recognition. The game would feature groundbreaking multiplayer. The world would dynamically evolve, which meant that the story and the kingdom would radically change based on your actions. And it would be so in-depth that if a player dropped an acorn, a tree would grow there as time passed. Molyneux even dared to say that what they were making was nothing less than the best RPG ever made. And he had one last promise to make: a fall 2002 release date. Famously, most of this never made it to the finished product, which was not anywhere near finished by fall 2002. Most were axed completely, though a few survived in reduced forms. Molyneux himself took quite a bit of flack for his big pronouncements, and while still a beloved figure in the gaming community, he's teased for this game quite a bit. Nonetheless, the game's crew soldiered on. Despite the delays, Microsoft was still happy with where things were going. However, while Big Blue Box was rolling, the other Lionhead satellites were sinking fast. Despite Molyneux's support, they weren't finding publishers, and eventually, they all went under. But what about Big Blue Box? which was doing great. There was only one thing for it. In 2002, Lionhead formally acquired the studio. The former company heads were now project leads on Ego, which meant that they could do what they always wanted: develop games with financial security and somebody else handling the business side of it. Finally, in September 2004, Lionhead Studios released Fable, the final name of Thingy. As promised, the game would start the player off as a young lad or lass, and then follow them on their journey through adulthood to old age. Along the way, the character would evolve with your actions. Eat a lot and you'll get fat. Run around and you'll get thin. Use magic and you'll get old. Get beat up and you'll get scars. Good actions gave an angelic appearance. Evil actions made the character look like the devil. What's more, it wouldn't just be your character that shifted. Your actions would be remembered by the villagers and townsfolk around you, and they would either learn to revere or fear you. True to Big Blue Box's original intentions, the world of Albion was huge and allowed the player to go anywhere and do anything. Aside from all the side quests and different realms to explore, you could also find a nice lady, marry her, and then marry another lady in another town. But if you neglected your spouse, there would be consequences, including divorce. It was a living, breathing world. It wasn't quite as all-immersive as they'd set out to make, or as Molyneux had promised, but taken on its own merits, it was quite an accomplishment. Still, it had its problems, not least of which was the overhype generated by Molyneux's outlandish statements. Despite the size of the world and the ability to do pretty much anything, there wasn't all that much to actually do, and the main story was relatively short and surprisingly light. For a game genre that emphasizes story, gamers and critics were surprised to see something so cliché. But it did it all with a wonderful fairy tale art design and tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, and in the end, the pros outweighed the cons. Fable broke the Week 1 sales record on the Xbox, and 3 weeks later broke the Month 1 sales record. Much like its hero, Fable triumphed against all odds. But nonetheless, there were a lot of broken promises that Molyneux had made. And both he and his creative team were more than ready to patch them up again. Tune in next time to see Fable grow old.